We are recording this in January 2026, and I want that date on record. I want that date on record because in Britain, the past gets rewritten faster than roads get resurfaced. And that is saying something, because the road resurfacing is basically just a man throwing gravel at potholes. By next year, half the press will be saying no one ever claimed this happened. By the time you finish watching, you will understand why Keir Starmer became the most unpopular Prime Minister since records began in 1977. Why he blocked an inquiry that 75% of the British public supported, why 3 million petition signatures were ignored, and why 12,000 people are being arrested every year for what they say online. But more importantly, you will understand who he actually works for, because this is Britain, and the only way you get the truth is if you sit through 8 acts, like it is a Netflix series called Administrative Failure, the musical. The final act reveals an organisation that has been shaping Western democracy for 50 years. And Keir Starmer is a member. Let us begin. Keir Starmer was born in 1962 in Southwark, London, raised in Surrey. His father was a tool maker, his mother a nurse. He was the first in his family to attend university. This is the classic British political origin story. It is like a LinkedIn post written by a focus group. All I ever had was grit, hard work, and a totally normal property acquisition that raises no questions whatsoever. In Britain, we love this narrative because it is comforting. It tells you the system is fair, while the system is actively trying to repossess your optimism. He studied law at Leeds, then Oxford, graduating with first-class honours. In his 20s, he edited a Trotskyist magazine called Socialist Alternatives. He edited a Trotskyist magazine, which is the sort of thing you do when you are young and idealistic and you still think politics is about ideas. Then you get older and realise politics is about appointments. It is the only career where you can go from seize the means of production to please seize my seat at the Davos dinner without anyone even accusing you of hypocrisy. They just call it maturing. He was called to the bar in 1987 and co-founded Doughty Street Chambers in 1990. He built a reputation as a human rights barrister. The Mick Libel case against McDonald's, death penalty work internationally. He overturned 417 death sentences in Uganda alone. Overturned 417 death sentences. That is not a CV. That is a Marvel origin story. And then Britain looked at this human rights crusader and said, excellent, we have just the job for you. Come and run the Crown Prosecution Service during an era of absolute institutional calm and perfect record keeping, which is like hiring a lifeguard and then immediately setting fire to the pool. In 2002, he became Queen's Counsel at just 39 years old. Here is something curious. In 1996, as a relatively junior barrister, he acquired 7 acres of land in Surrey. Current estimated value £10 million. 7 acres in Surrey as a junior barrister. Now maybe he is a financial genius. Maybe he bought it with careful saving and a Tesco club card. Or maybe, and I am just guessing, the phrase junior barrister is doing the same job small boat crossings does in politics. It makes something enormous sound manageable, because in the UK, junior can mean I have not been knighted yet. How does a junior barrister afford 7 acres? The record does not tell us. By 2007, he was joint head of Doughty Street Chambers, earning approximately £400 per hour. The transformation from Trotskyist magazine editor to wealthy establishment figure was complete. How and why that happened is never explained. What we do know is what came next. Director of Public Prosecutions. In 2008, Kier Starmer was appointed Director of Public Prosecutions, head of the Crown Prosecution Service, the highest prosecutorial authority in England and Wales. Director of Public Prosecutions. That title sounds like you are meant to prosecute the public, and honestly, looking at the last few years, it is not far off. It is also one of those jobs where the public assumes it is a moral office, like a judge in a wig bravely defending the innocent. But bureaucracies are not moral. They are procedural. They do not ask, is this right? They ask, is this within policy? Which is the legal version of shrugging. In 2009, the CPS received complaints against Jimmy Savile. 4 separate complainants came forward with serious allegations against Britain's most famous television personality. The CPS decided not to prosecute. The most prolific sex offender in British history walked free. Starmer later claimed he was never aware that Savile was accused. Never aware. That is the most British phrase in public life. It is like we take this very seriously. It means I have been informed that reality has occurred, and I would like to formally not know it. Britain runs on this. It is the same energy as I did not see the email said by a department whose entire job is emails. We are a nation that invented surveillance CCTV and then somehow still cannot find the file when it becomes inconvenient. Consider that. The Director of Public Prosecutions claims he was unaware of a case against a man whose face appeared on television screens across Britain for decades. That same year, the CPS received evidence of organised child sexual exploitation in Rochdale. Multiple victims, multiple perpetrators, systematic abuse. The CPS declined to prosecute. The reason given was victim credibility concerns. The victims, vulnerable children, were deemed not credible enough. Victim credibility concerns, which is a fascinating standard when the victim is a child, because children are not credible. That is basically their brand. Children lie about everything. They will look you dead in the face with chocolate on their mouth and say, I have never seen a biscuit in my life. So the standard becomes, if you have been abused, could you also please be a calm, articulate, middle-aged solicitor with a ring binder of evidence? Otherwise, we cannot help you. But do not worry. We are here to support you emotionally from a safe distance, through a leaflet. The abuse continued for years. In 2010, the Brazilian electrician Jean-Charles de Menezes shot 7 times in the head by police on the London Underground in a case of mistaken identity. Starmer upheld the decision not to prosecute any officer. Between 2010 and 2012, allegations emerged that MI5 officers were complicit in torture overseas. The CPS found insufficient evidence to prosecute. Insufficient evidence? Yes, of course, because if there is one organisation famous for leaving neat paper trails, it is an intelligence agency. They practically run on transparency. The MI in MI5 stands for metadata, innocently documented. It is like trying to prosecute a ghost. You turn up in court and the defendant is just a fog machine wearing a lanyard. No MI5 officer was charged. In 2011, Nazir Afzal became Chief Crown Prosecutor for the North West. He reversed the Rochdale decision. 9 convictions followed. The case the CPS rejected was prosecutable all along. In 2013, after Savile's death, the truth emerged. Hundreds of victims, a lifetime of abuse. Starmer commissioned a report that found prosecution might have been possible. He apologised for shortcomings. Here is what should concern everyone. All CPS files relating to the Savile decision were destroyed. The reason given was data protection policy, destroyed under data protection, which is incredible. Because data protection is supposed to stop leaks, not stop memory. Imagine if this applied elsewhere. Why did you delete the CCTV? Data protection. Why did you shred the minutes of the meeting? Data protection. Why did you incinerate the entire department? GDPR. It is the perfect modern spell. You say it and everyone nods like you have spoken Latin, and the public goes back to arguing. All records of Starmer's 4 trips to Washington, D.C. as DPP were shredded, no reason given. 4 trips to Washington and the records were shredded. 4. That is not a holiday, that is a relationship. If I took 4 trips to Washington and my partner asked, "Who did you meet?" and I said I have shredded the receipts under data protection, I would be single within minutes. But in politics, it is fine. In politics, that is called statecraft. In real life, it is called you are hiding something. What was in those files? What was discussed in Washington? We cannot know. The evidence was destroyed. 1 week before leaving the CPS, Starmer met with the head of MI5. There is no public record of what was discussed. In 2014, he received a knighthood. In 2015, Starmer entered Parliament as MP for Holborn and St Pancras. By 2016, he was Shadow Brexit Secretary under Jeremy Corbyn. During 2017 to 2018, something happened that Starmer never disclosed. While serving in Corbyn's shadow cabinet, he joined an organisation. He never told Corbyn. He never told the Labour leadership. He never declared it to Parliament. A spokesman for Corbyn later said this membership was plainly incompatible with Labour's policies. He was one of only 2 sitting British MPs to hold this membership. One of only 2 sitting MPs. Which is an interesting phrase because it makes it sound like a rare Pokemon. Congratulations, you have unlocked Shadow Brexit Secretary Limited Edition. And as always, when something is very rare, you are told it is totally normal. If it was normal, there would be loads of them. There would be a club, there would be a loyalty card. But no, it is exclusive. And exclusive is just unaccountable wearing a dinner jacket. We will return to this organisation later. What we reveal will change how you understand everything. In 2017, Morgan McSweeney founded a think tank called Labour Together. Its stated purpose was to move the Labour Party from the hard left. Think tank. A phrase that exists so nobody has to say unofficial government. A think tank is where ideas go to be laundered. You put an idea in as we need to help people. It comes out as we need a 5-year strategic framework for stakeholder alignment. And suddenly there is a consultancy fee. The board included Trevor Chin, a pro-Israel lobbyist who would later donate £50,000 to Starmer's leadership campaign. The same man funding the leadership sat on the board of the organisation selecting the leader, Morgan McSweeney. Remember that name? He founded Labour Together, ran Starmer's leadership campaign, reported to a board including Starmer's major donor, and is now Chief of Staff at Downing Street. He is like if you played Football Manager and just kept promoting the same person to every position. Who should be campaign manager? McSweeney. Who should control access to the Prime Minister? Believe it or not, McSweeney. When Corbyn lost the 2019 election, Starmer launched his leadership bid. McSweeney ran his campaign. Key donors included Lord Wahid Ali at £100,000, Trevor Chin at £50,000, and Robert Latham at £100,000. Look at the donor list. It reads like a menu at a restaurant you cannot afford. £100,000. £100,000, £50,000, that is not politics, that is a wine pairing, and the waiter leans in and says, would you like your leader lightly funded or heavily influenced? And the public is outside peering through the window, being told you cannot come in without a reservation. He won. Then the purge began. Jeremy Corbyn was expelled. Left-wing candidates were systematically removed. In 2024, Labour won a landslide. Morgan McSweeney became Chief of Staff. The donor money and operational control are not separate. They are connected. Starmer's estimated net worth sits between £3 and £8 million. He owns 7 acres in Surrey, acquired in 1996, now estimated at £10 million. A North London townhouse worth approximately £2 million. A £700,000 pension from his DPP role, which is exempt from normal tax rules. He made over £1 million during his 5 years as DPP. Lord Waheed Ali has given more than £700,000 to Labour over 2 decades. That makes him one of the most significant individual donors in modern Labour history. To Starmer personally, since December 2019, Ali contributed £100,000 to the leadership campaign, over £32,000 in clothing, £20,000 for accommodation in a Covent Garden flat, and £5,000 in clothing for his wife. The clothing donations were initially declared as being for his private office. They were later corrected to acknowledge they were personal gifts. His wife's clothing was initially not declared at all. Clothing donations are my favourite genre of scandal because they are so British. In another country, it would be suitcases of cash. Here it is like, no, there was no corruption. It was just a man buying the Prime Minister outfits like he is a sim. And then the donor gets a Downing Street pass, which is brilliant because it implies there are 2 types of security in Britain. One for the public, which involves queues and suspicion, and one for donors, which involves a smile and a lanyard. After the election, Ali was given a Downing Street security pass. He hosted a reception in the Downing Street garden. He is currently under House of Lords investigation for 4 breaches of the Code of Conduct. Ali is a media mogul, made a Labour peer by Tony Blair in 1998, a long-standing Blair ally. 13 of 25 cabinet members have received funding linked to the pro-Israel lobby. More than half the cabinet, total documented value over £300,000. Trevor Chin gave £50,000 to Starmer's leadership campaign. He sits on the executive committee of BICOM, the Britain-Israel Communications and Research Centre. He sat on Labour Together's board. The same donor funds the leadership campaign and sits on the board of the organisation running it. Recipients include Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, Lisa Nandy, and Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary. Labour Friends of Israel funded trips to Israel for 8 cabinet members. They do not disclose their funders. A 2017 Al Jazeera documentary revealed they work really closely with the Israeli embassy behind the scenes. Stuart Roden, a hedge fund manager, has given over £1 million to Labour since 2023 alone. When the same network funds 13 of 25 cabinet positions, coincidence becomes mathematically improbable. That is the polite way of saying either this is coordinated or Britain has developed a new national religion called the miraculous repeating donor. And if it is a miracle, fine, but then we should at least get a bank holiday, because right now the only people celebrating are the people with access badges. For regular viewers, you will recognise what comes next. We examine the revolving door pattern so frequently because it appears with such consistency. The same mechanisms, the same beneficiaries. On January 8th, 2025, Conservative MPs tabled an amendment calling for a national inquiry into grooming gangs. Starmer responded by imposing a 3-line whip. Every Labour MP was ordered to vote against. The result was 364 votes against and 111 for. The inquiry was blocked. Starmer himself abstained. 9 cabinet ministers abstained. They ordered their MPs to vote against, then declined to vote themselves. YouGov Polling showed over 75% of the British public supported an inquiry. Over 2 million signed petitions demanding it. Starmer's response was to call supporters jumping on the bandwagon of the far right. 75% of the British public, far right. According to Kier, Starmer, 3/4 of the country are now far-right extremists. That includes your nan, that includes the bloke at the post office. By this logic, wanting an English muffin probably makes you a fascist sympathiser. In June, after the Baroness Casey report, he U-turned. The inquiry was finally announced. 6 months of obstruction. Who benefited from blocking? Labour MPs in constituencies with high Muslim populations. Labour councils where gangs operated. And Starmer's own DPP record protected from scrutiny. In September 2025, the brick card scheme was announced. Digital ID to become mandatory for right-to-work checks. The Tony Blair Institute has been the primary advocate. As we covered in our Blair episode, there is significant money in digital infrastructure. Public response was 2.96 million signatures against. 4th largest petition in British parliamentary history. Liberal Democrats opposed, Reform opposed, SNP opposed. Over 30 MPs opposed, 3 million signatures against. And the response? We are doing it anyway. What is even the point of the petition system? The people have spoken, and what did they say? Who cares? At least dictatorships are honest about ignoring public opinion. The policy proceeds regardless. In October 2024, Tommy Robinson was sentenced to 18 months in prison, not for a criminal offence, for contempt of court, a civil matter. He had breached an injunction by repeating claims in a documentary. He was placed in HMP Belmarsh, a maximum security prison housing terrorists and murderers, then moved to HMP Woodhill, where he was held in solitary confinement. 23.5 hours a day in a cell, solitary confinement, for months, for a civil offence. You know what else is a civil offence? Not paying your council tax on time. Parking violations. Do you know what we do not do to people who park illegally? Put them in a maximum security prison in isolation for 23.5 hours a day until they mentally deteriorate. But that is the punishment for making a documentary the government did not like. The priorities here are fascinating. Groom children, we will look into it eventually. Make a film. Solitary confinement in a prison full of murderers. Justice. The Ministry of Justice stated there were intelligence reports that a prisoner serving a life sentence planned to kill him. 2 other prisoners allegedly plotted to attack him for kudos.
Robinson told the High Court in March 2025 that the solitary confinement is destroying my mind. I am terrified of the long-term consequences.
His lawyers argued that prolonged solitary confinement violates the European Convention on Human Rights. The court ruled against him. In July 2024, Robinson was stopped at the Channel Tunnel under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act. Counter-terrorism police demanded his phone PIN. He refused, citing journalistic privilege.
In November 2025, Judge Sam Goozee cleared him and ruled the stop itself was unlawful. His exact words were, "I cannot put out of my mind that it was actually what you stood for and your political beliefs that acted as the principal reason for this stop."
The judge literally said the police targeted him for his political beliefs, out loud, in a courtroom, in a formal ruling, and nothing happened. No officers disciplined, no policy change, no apology. Imagine if Russia did this, we would be calling for sanctions. But it is Britain, so we just shrug and move on. Robinson credited Elon Musk with funding his legal defence, nearly £100,000. An American businessman had to pay for a British citizen to defend himself against his own government's unlawful persecution. We are still funding the prosecution and harassment. They will do this to anyone who threatens the system. Over 12,000 arrests per year for speech offences. 30 people every day. A 4-fold increase since 2016. Graham Linehan, creator of Father Ted, detained by armed police at Heathrow for tweets sent from Arizona. A woman held for 36 hours for misidentifying the Southport attacker on social media. 18-month prison sentences for offensive Facebook posts. Starmer says we are not censoring anyone. The Trump administration warned the UK against censoring American technology firms. Vice President J.D. Vance criticised UK democratic backsliding. America considered offering asylum to a British woman jailed for a tweet. When the United States considers offering asylum to British citizens imprisoned for speech, something fundamental is broken in this country. Whenever anyone asks for statistics on crimes committed by immigrants or illegal migrants, they are told the data does not exist because it was not recorded, and people just accept this and move on. But think about what that actually means. If data on the nationality of rape suspects is not available, that can only mean one of two things. Either the government has the data and is refusing to release it, or the police are interviewing rape victims and not writing down a description of the attacker. So, which is it? Is there a filing cabinet in Whitehall marked "Things the public must never see"? Or is a police officer sitting across from a traumatised victim saying, "Can you describe your attacker?" and then not writing it down? Because we have decided that is not relevant to solving the crime anymore, we prefer to guess. One is a cover-up, the other is institutional negligence. So staggering, it would be funny if it was not about violent crime. Imagine if your bank said, we do not know how much money is in your account. We stopped recording it. You would not say, "Oh, fair enough." You would say that is literally your only job. But when the government says we have no idea who is committing crimes, because we chose not to look, we are supposed to treat that as an administrative quirk rather than the most convenient incompetence in British political history. Stalled elections. Let me be absolutely clear about what is happening. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is refusing to let the public vote because he knows he would lose. That is not spin. That is not interpretation. That is what is happening. He has delayed local elections twice. His justification is boundary changes and cost savings. His actual reason is that Labour is polling so badly that allowing democracy to occur would end his political project overnight. The British public have made their position clear. They want him gone. And his response is, no, you do not get to vote. I need someone to explain to me how this is not a dictatorship. Genuinely, I am asking, because my understanding of democracy is that the public choose their representatives through elections. And my understanding of dictatorship is that the leader stays in power by preventing elections from happening. So when a leader prevents elections from happening because he would lose them, what exactly are we supposed to call that? Do you know where else the public do not get to vote? North Korea. Do you know where else people are arrested for what they say? China, Russia. Why is no media reporting on this? Where is the BBC special? Oh, right. Bias, British control have opted not to cover it. Just like they opted not to cover Iranians standing up against their government. We do not want people getting ideas. The revolving door appears so consistently in British politics that we have made it a recurring theme in this series. The pattern is predictable, so let us predict. We are recording this in January 2026. Lord Ali has given over £700,000. Expect media sector payback. The pro-Israel network contributed over £300,000 to the cabinet. Expect speaking fees and think tank positions. The Tony Blair network pushed digital ID as their priority. Expect consultancy. The financial sector, through BlackRock's CEO, has direct access to government. Expect board positions. Speaking circuit fees will likely be £50,000 to £100,000 per speech. Blair earns millions annually. Same path. £50,000 to £100,000 per speech. For saying words out loud, I am in the wrong profession. I have been making videos for considerably less. If I had known the real money was in becoming a failed Prime Minister and then charging corporations to listen to me talk about leadership for 45 minutes, I would have pursued a very different career path. Although I suppose you need to actually become Prime Minister first, which requires a certain moral flexibility I am not sure I possess. Think tank involvement is likely. Tony Blair Institute advisory role or establishment of his own institute. We already covered Blair's post-political empire. The model is established. Corporate boards in financial services, technology sector, defence contractors. Specific predictions include a BlackRock advisory position and Mishcon de Reya, where there were reported talks in 2017. Timeline prediction: 6 months after leaving office, we'll be writing memoirs. 12 months will see board appointments announced. 24 months will have a full speaking circuit operational. 5 years and net worth doubled minimum. We make these predictions in January 2026. If accurate, the pattern is not accident. It is incentive structure, current policy decisions explained by future rewards. In the interest of honesty, some questions we cannot definitively answer. Why were all the Savile files destroyed? Data protection does not explain destroying evidence on the most prolific sex offender in British history. 4 trips to Washington. All records shredded. Who did he meet? What was discussed? Trotskyist in his 20s. This in his 60s. When did the transformation happen? Why? Junior barrister acquires land now worth £10 million. How? He joined an organisation while in Corbyn's shadow cabinet, never told his leader. Why? £700,000 over 2 decades from Ali. What exactly is expected in return? Meeting with MI5 1 week before leaving the CPS? What was discussed? These are the questions I cannot answer. And I want to be clear about why I am being honest about this, because unlike some people, when I do not know something, I say I do not know rather than just making it up or destroying the files. The fact that these questions remain unanswered is not because we did not look. It is because someone made very sure the answers could not be found, which in its own way is an answer. And the final question: who is really controlling decision-making in the United Kingdom? A Prime Minister implementing policies against overwhelming public will, blocking inquiries 3/4 of Britain supports, ignoring 3 million signatures, member of an organisation most people have never heard of. Something just does not add up. Everything we have discussed leads here. This is not conspiracy theory. These are their own documents, published under their own name, their own words, their own stated objectives. The Trilateral Commission was founded in July 1973 by David Rockefeller, chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank, and Zbigniew Brzezinski, who became Jimmy Carter's national security advisor. The organisation has approximately 400 members from North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Headquarters in Washington, D.C., Paris, and Tokyo. Members include politicians, bankers, corporate executives, media owners, and academics. All meetings conducted under Chatham House rules. Off the record by design. The official rule states that members who enter government must relinquish their membership. The reality is they return to active membership upon leaving office. The door revolves continuously. In 1975, the Trilateral Commission published a report called The Crisis of Democracy. These are direct quotations from their own publication. The report states that the problems of governance stem from an excess of democracy. They actually wrote that down and published it under their own name. Most shadowy elite organisations at least have the decency to be secretive about their contempt for ordinary people. These lot just put it in a book. We think there is too much democracy. Should we maybe keep that to ourselves? No, print it. The masses will not read it anyway. They are too busy participating in the excess democracy we are complaining about. The arrogance is almost impressive. Almost. The report states that the effective operation of a democratic political system usually requires some measure of apathy and non-involvement on the part of some individuals and groups. Democracy works better when you are apathetic, when you do not participate, do not vote, do not protest, do not sign petitions. Well, definitely do not sign petitions. We have established those. Do not do anything anyway. Just go to work, pay your taxes, and leave the important decisions to the small number of Wall Street lawyers and bankers who know what is best for you. That is not me being cynical. That is literally what they wrote. They called it moderation in democracy. I call it the opposite of what democracy is supposed to be. But what do I know? I am just one of the people they want to be more apathetic. The report called for actions to restore the prestige and authority of central government institutions, more power to central government, less power to the public. The report complained that governments were overloaded with participants and demands, too many people participating, too many demands from the public. This is characterized as a problem requiring solution. Samuel P. Huntington, writing the American chapter, stated that Truman had been able to govern the country with the cooperation of a relatively small number of Wall Street lawyers and bankers. He is openly acknowledging that America was run by a small financial elite and presenting this as preferable. The problem was that this was no longer possible because the sources of power in society had diversified. Translation: too many people now have influence. The linguist Noam Chomsky called this document one of the most interesting and insightful books showing the modern democratic system not to really be a democracy at all. He observed that it demonstrates how elites seek to keep the general public disengaged from genuine democratic participation. Because this was an internal discussion among elites, they felt free to speak candidly about reducing the public back to its proper state of apathy and obedience. This is who Kier Starmer sat alongside in these meetings. John Deutsch, Director of the Central Intelligence Agency from 1995 to 96. David Petraeus, Director of the CIA from 2011 to 12. Jamie Mishik, Deputy Director of the CIA for Intelligence. John Negroponte, Director of National Intelligence. Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State. Jake Sullivan, current US National Security Advisor. Antony Blinken, Secretary of State from 2021 to 25, Jean-Claude Trichet, former President of the European Central Bank, David Ignatius, Washington Post columnist, a British shadow cabinet member sitting in meetings with multiple former CIA directors, intelligence chiefs, central bankers, and media controllers. Never disclosed, never explained. Starmer joined in 2017 to 2018, while Shadow Secretary of State for Brexit under Jeremy Corbyn. He never told Corbyn. A Corbyn spokesman later stated the membership was plainly incompatible with Labour's policies. He never declared it to Parliament. No entry in the Register of Members' Interests. He was one of only 2 sitting British MPs to hold this membership. The other was Rory Stewart, who has since left Parliament. The Trilateral Commission's 1975 goal was that excess of democracy is the problem. Starmer's policy was blocking an inquiry 75% supported. The trilateral goal was that the public should be apathetic. Starmer's result is being the most unpopular PM since 1977. The trilateral goal was to restore central government authority. Starmer's policy is digital ID proceeding against 3 million signatures. The trilateral goal was control of information. Starmer's policy is 12,000 speech arrests per year. The trilateral goal was corporate-friendly governance. Starmer's policy is BlackRock CEO advising on economic policy. Every stated goal from their 1975 document is being implemented by the current British government. When Keir Starmer secretly joined an organisation advocating reduced democracy, sat alongside CIA directors and intelligence chiefs, concealed this from his own party leader, never declared it to Parliament, and now implements every policy goal from their 50-year agenda against the expressed will of the British public. Who is he actually working for? Is he the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom? Or is he a project manager for the Trilateral Commission? Is he the Prime Minister or a project manager? Because it does feel like Britain is being run like a corporate rollout. Phase 1, reduce public input. Phase 2, implement infrastructure. Phase 3, measure sentiment. And somewhere a man with a PowerPoint says great engagement on the democratic backsliding deliverable. Next sprint, apologise. The Treason Act of 1351 remains in force in the United Kingdom. It defines high treason as adhering to the king's enemies, giving them aid and comfort, and working with foreign agents against the monarch. Current penalty since the Crime and Disorder Act 1998 is life imprisonment. Last conviction was William Joyce, known as Lord Haw-Haw in 1946, for collaborating with Nazi Germany. The documented evidence shows secret membership in a foreign-dominated organisation alongside multiple former CIA directors and intelligence chiefs. an organisation that explicitly advocates reducing democracy and returning the public to apathy and obedience. Never disclosed to Parliament, never told his own party leader, acting against the expressed democratic will of the British people repeatedly. 3 million signatures ignored, 75% polling overridden. Implementing every policy goal from the Trilateral Commission's 50-year-old agenda, over £300,000 to the cabinet from a single lobby network, donor sitting on board of organisation that selected him as leader, systematic destruction of evidence, all Savile files destroyed, all Washington DC trip records shredded, using terror legislation against citizens for their political beliefs, as a judge explicitly ruled unlawful, imprisoning critics in solitary confinement for civil offences, arresting 12,000 people per year for speech, so there we have it. Secret membership in a foreign organisation advocating reduced democracy, sitting alongside CIA directors, implementing their 50-year-old agenda against public will, destroying evidence, persecuting opponents, using terror laws against political beliefs. And all of this is documented, not alleged, not speculated. Documented in public records, their own publications, official registers, and court rulings. I am not connecting dots that are not there. The dots connected themselves, I am just reading them out loud, which, given current trends, might itself be a crime by the time you're watching this. If I disappear, check the solitary confinement wing of Woodhill. I will be the one without a podcast deal. We have presented the evidence. You decide. This investigation was conducted in January 2026. Every claim documented from public records, official registers, their publications, and verified sources. If our predictions prove accurate, this pattern is not coincidence. It is design. Thank you for watching. If you have found the video interesting, please consider subscribing, and remember, stay curious, stay uncomfortable.